And I'm now really nervous because someone said, oh, you've done a TED talk, so you know what you're doing. You won't need timing. You won't need, I'm going to make this all completely wrong today, so here we go. But I did some work for AQMEN looking at the Scottish independence referendum in 2014. We looked at mediated discussion forums online, where there was a mediator, the BBC's Have Your Say threads, and we also looked at Twitter unmediated forums and looked at the content that was going on. And from that, I've done 2 TED Talks. This was the second one, and I'm going to kind of give you the greatest hits, the 10 Fs of things that I spotted when we were going through this data as to things you might want to be aware of, or things that we might want to be aware of in terms of politics, or things you might want to be aware of in terms of business and so on. I think in the good old days, it was much easier to control the message, both in terms of the media, the parties, the candidates. It was much more top-down, and the public paid attention, and there was really just a letters page or something to come back on. Now, if you did have someone screaming obscenities or doing something, they were in their house and you didn't hear them, or you hear them muttering on the street and you walk right past them. Whereas today, you could argue that this is where we're at, and everyone's a broadcaster, and everybody's capable of saying something about businesses, parties, candidates, whatever else it might be. And therefore, there is this aspect of to what extent can we believe what we're hearing, and how representative is what we're hearing. And I'd like to talk a little bit about some of that today. The 5 Fs that I did in TEDx1 were more kind of 5 Fs to avoid, but I'm going to reframe that in terms of the 5 Fs to monitor, and then 5 Fs to be aware of that you might not be aware of, that I'm going to go through as well. The first F to think about is the foul, and if this crops up, now when we did our analysis, we found that the foul was smaller than 2%, so there was a very small number of people engaged in this kind of behaviour. So there was I on STV Tonight talking about this, and I thought, well, what are people tweeting about me saying or being on STV Tonight? And somebody tweeted back, and I said that there was only 2% of bad language on the tweets we were studying, and all I got was Shephard laments the fact that there is not enough swearing on Twitter. And then my head of school asked me the following day, is this true? And I was like, so you're actually believing what someone is tweeting about what I have said? You can read watch the program if you want. So I think the thing about this to point out is that it is quite narrow, and quite focused, but that it can get out of control in the sense that this can steamroll, and the media can pick up on this, or rivals can pick up on this, and then it looks like it's representative when it might actually not be. So there's a damage limitation that you need to think about with that one. The flaming's probably arguably got more traction to it because there's more of this, and this can be in a good sense or a bad sense depending upon how it's framed. And flaming occurs in a lot of different contexts. It's not just uppercase and exclamation marks. It can be quite demonstrative usages of language, and I'll give you an example coming up. The false, this one crops up a lot, and this is where people see something that's gone bad with an aspect of service provision or an aspect of a business, or there's something that one politician in a political party has said, or one English person has said, and then that is aggregated up to the total. So you've got problems here in terms of the individual fallacy, and then also in reverse the ecological fallacy that you need to think about. And here's probably all 3. Trump does all 3 of these quite regularly. This was one of the most amusing ones we came across on the BBC's Have Your Say threads that we came across. The Foggy, this is where subgroups of people are discussing online and they've got their own language, but the other people don't know what it is, so the English don't know what "wee eck" means. Or this is sick. I didn't know what this meant. Someone said to me, your hair is sick, and I thought I'd had a really bad haircut, or it was, it was really denatured, or that my hair dye just for men had kind of wrecked my hair or something. And but they actually it was a compliment, but I didn't realise that. So you need to be looking out for these kind of things. The flannel, this crops up where you get posts that spiral out of control, and somebody keeps reiterating or trying to make their point until they've almost won, and this can spiral out of control, and this winds people up. So this was something that we noted was going on during these debates. The 5 Fs to be aware of: followers. When you're engaged and you're looking at different hashtags, you might have very different audiences attached to those different hashtags. So hashtag no is a completely different audience to hashtag yes. Hashtag IndieRef was more balanced, but still more in favour of the yes vote. So you need to think about, and this diagram here represents what was going on the BBC's Have Your Say threads, because you had that 10-to-1 ratio is the English population versus the Scottish population. Both groups were equally getting involved in stories on the independence referendum, but it looked like there was a deluge of English voices, of kind of anti-Scottish English voices on there, when actually, if you control for population, there were actually disproportionately more Scottish voices than English voices. Now, depending upon how people spin our research, Alex Salmon spun our research one way, and I'm on his book, autobiography, on page 49, and then the NoCap was spinning it the other way around. So you can play this different ways, but you do need to be aware of who the followers are to different hashtags. And it might be that you have to create your own hashtag to gain more control or traction of what you want to do. Facts. This is, a lot of people were self-selecting. There's self-selection bias. People would find things online, and we're probably all guilty of this, where you find something online and it fits your political view or your opinion, and it looks really, really good. It could be one of those things where it talks about all the horrors that go on in America with healthcare, guns and everything else, and all the wonderful things that exist in Norway, and a typical Occupy Democrats kind of post, which we all find on Facebook and we all retweet. But you've got to bear in mind that you need to cross-check your facts, and that actually there might be self-selecting data, and that if you were to take a more holistic approach, you might get a more nuanced perspective, which still might argue your case, but it might make your case more stronger because it's a 60% versus 40%, not just 100% washout that nobody believes because it looks so one-sided. Fashion is where you get a preponderance of people online, but they don't match the preponderance of people offline. So you need to think about to what extent does the offline match the online. And we tracked this at about 11 a.m. every single day for about 18 months. We looked at the Facebook and Twitter likes during the independence referendum from 2013 to 2014. And you can see there that yes is ahead, both in terms of it on Twitter and on Facebook. And then towards the end, we noticed this tsunami effect, and I wrote something about this tsunami effect, and I wished I'd have used that in a book title because somebody else used it in the book title. We were the tsunami people. Once we started using that word, everyone was using tsunami. The filtering is, now there are obvious filters where you might engage on a website but there's a moderator and that's a filter, but there's also other filters out there, and this can be to do with those who are your audience or your market, and it might be that you're only getting certain feedback from certain groups of people because they feel comfortable communicating online. I have plenty of my colleagues from different countries around the world who don't feel comfortable engaging in social media at all. Do they have opinions? Do they have views? Yes, they do. But they self-filter themselves out because they want to enter and exit their country and get back into the UK without somebody telling them your passport has been revoked. So sometimes there are different groups out there who, or it might not even be that, it might be your workplace. It might be that you feel that if you were to say anything on this particular issue, that might have an impact on your career or your status. And so we need to think about, some people are very free online, but some people are very closed. And to what extent are we actually getting the views or opinions of those closed groups who don't take part? The other part is, the last one I'd like to look at is fallout. And here the fallout, this is not just in terms of those people who mess up online and maybe lose their careers or lose their jobs, but it's the fallout for parties, parliament, organisations, businesses. If people see that it's really grim out there, or that they're going to get attacked based on ethnicity, gender, disability, then they might not engage or get involved with a political party or stand as a candidate in parliament or get too involved in a business because they can see that they're not, they might be undermined or there might be this serious run. So it's not just what happens to the person who is doing the nasty stuff online. It might also be, to what extent is this affecting how we all engage in politics, with businesses and so on. We need to think about the groups who might be marginalised by that fallout and who might not get as involved as we might think that they might. The other thing we noted when we were looking at which data to pick, we looked at the Sun as a possible source, but we did notice that they left that the BBC keeps their threads open. So you might want to think about if you do have a discussion forum, or you might want to think about the hours that that operates. We noticed that the Sun left theirs open all night long, and you can see that drink, drugs, drama escalate after about lunchtime. So the BBC kind of keeps their site open from 9 till 1, and then they guillotine the comment sections. And that ensures that their moderators are not having to work too hard, because most people haven't started drinking by 1, and they get most serious comments. There's less proofreading needing doing on the comments that are made. When we were looking at the Sun, it ended in chaos by the end, and it was eventually people stopped arguing with each other and they started asking each other out or getting completely off topic and talking about other things not to do with politics or whatever. So think about those, think about the timings, and think about possible software that might catch these different aspects. You can normally find it within an individual where they go from being cogent and they can communicate and they've got good grammar, and then it goes. Or they start doing more flaming behaviour, uppercase, or maybe it's just Trump at any time of the day. So we were looking out for the flipped, the fried, and the furious. And then even if you want to escape, this is the final slide, even if you want to escape online, I don't think you actually can escape online. So this is me escaping online by just doing up my garden, just the way I kind of might do, because I'm a little bit mad. And so this is me, but I think that the only reason my garden looks that good is because I was going to post a picture of it on Facebook, and I wanted likes. So actually, I think even our offline behaviour is affected by our online behaviour. And I probably would have done that at any rate in case the neighbour had popped over and taken a photo, which they did at Christmas, and they got a really good shot. And I was in the Canaries, and they sent me this really good picture, which meant that I could post that online whilst I was on holiday. It made it look like I was at home. But anyway, that's me. Thank you very much.